I rise in support of H.R. 1156, the China Financial Threat Mitigation Act. This is a measure that originated in the Financial Services Committee, where it was first introduced by our former colleague, Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio. I'm pleased to see his co-sponsor, Ms. Spanberger, continue to champion the measure of this Congress. The China Financial Threat Mitigation Act is based on the notion that China's financial system is so opaque that it may hide risks for the global economy to which we aren't aware. The bill requires the Treasury Secretary to study and report on these risks so that we can take effective countermeasures. As we all know, China has been cracking down on Western firms and executives due to fears that the private sector's information gathering and due diligence efforts pose a threat to the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP clearly views transparency as inconsistent with its self-interest. This should alarm us all. Due to the state-owned nature of many Chinese financial institutions, there are already fewer market signals that can alert us to problems in time, and the central government may be on the hook for liabilities of unknown scope. The Financial Stability Oversight Council has touched on the possibility of risks in the country, including those arising from China's housing sector, but these have been broad-brushed efforts. We need to dig deeper, and that is what the reporting in this legislation will require. I urge my colleagues to support this measure. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Missouri reserves. The woman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you. I yield myself such time as I may consume. I rise in support of H.R. 1156, the China Financial Threat Mitigation Act of 2023, sponsored by Representative Spanberger of Virginia. It is crucial that we closely monitor any risk to our financial system and economy that may arise from the financial sector and economy of the People's Republic of China. Our financial regulators have already raised some concerns about such risks. For example, the Financial Stability Oversight Council highlighted in their 2022 report that, quote, difficulties in the real estate sector could cause strains across China's financial system, including at banks, non-banks, corporate bond markets, and local government finances, end quote. However, further analysis is needed as China's size and interconnectedness with the global economy may pose risks to the United States if those kind of risks spill over. H.R. 1156 would require a comprehensive report by our Treasury Department looking at these different types of financial risks in consultation with relevant agencies to better inform Congress and provide actionable recommendations to our representatives at various international bodies, such as the Financial Stability Board, in order to mitigate these risks. Ranking Member Waters was pleased to work with Chair McHenry last Congress to advance this bipartisan bill through the House. I join her in hoping that we can pass this bill again with the support of the Senate so this work can begin quickly. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Colorado reserves. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
I'd like to recognize for as much time as he may consume as the gentleman from Texas, our baseball coach who has distinguished himself not only here in Congress but also on the baseball field, Mr. Williams.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Speaker, for that great introduction. China is attempting to weaken our country in any way possible. The interference and aggression coming from the Chinese Communist Party poses a significant threat to our families, businesses, and country. The CCP's track record of abusing our financial system is jeopardizing our national and economic security. H.R. 1156, the China Financial Threat Mitigation Act, requires the Department of Treasury to report on the risk coming from the Chinese financial sector, along with the recommendations on strengthening international cooperation to monitor and mitigate these risks. Our top priority should always be to protect our Western values and promote the greatest country in the world in the interests of the United States. My bill is a critical step in holding the CCP accountable for their continued abuse of the financial sector. I urge all my colleagues to support this important piece of legislation. In God we trust. I yield back.
The gentleman from Missouri reserves. The gentlewoman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you. I now yield to the gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Beatty, as much time as she may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And certainly I'd like to thank the gentlewoman for yielding, and I am pleased to rise in support of the China Financial Threat Mitigation Act, or H.R. 1156. And certainly I agree with my colleague and friend across the aisle that we need to dig deeper. And also, we understand that, yes, China is trying to weaken our country. Because of its size and deep connection to the global economy, the People's Republic of China represents a potential threat to our economy and our financial system. We must have a clear picture of the systemic risks we face so we can respond appropriately to safeguard our economic interests and mitigate these threats. This is a bipartisan bill, and it would require the Treasury Department to study an issue and issue a report that analyzes risks to the United States financial stability and the global economy stemming from China. I would like to thank my colleague, and who is the vice ranking chair of this subcommittee, for participating today along with our Republican colleagues, because as the ranking member of the Financial Services Subcommittee of National Security, Illicit Finance, and International Financial Institutions, this is the right thing to do, and I am very happy to work across the aisle to address the issues of competitiveness with China. And I urge all of the members to support this bipartisan bill. And Mr. Speaker, lastly, I don't think I need to remind us that I think it was almost 3 times that in the last Congress we brought this legislation before, and certainly I would like to thank then the congressman from Ohio who sponsored this legislation. So thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlewoman from Colorado reserves. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Will reserve at this time.
Reserves. Gentlewoman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close if the gentleman from Missouri has no further speakers.
Have no further witnesses or speak.
Gentlewoman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself the balance of the time.
Is recognized.
I commend Representative Spanberger for her leadership on these important issues and her work in drafting this bipartisan bill. I also thank Chair McHenry and Representative Williams of Texas on the other side of the aisle for working with us Democrats on this important legislation. This bipartisan work resulted in a vote of 40-0 on this bill during a Financial Services Committee markup earlier this year. I again urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Woman from Colorado yields. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to thank the sponsors of the bill, Mr. Williams, Ms. Beatty, Ms. Spanberger, for their hard work on this good piece of legislation. I think it's something that's very important. They've already expressed the need for it. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I urge the adoption of this and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1156 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
For what purpose?
I request the yeas and nays.
I request a yea and a nay vote. Yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause A of the Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed.